Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Witchy Business. This week, we're going to talk about the power of checking yourself, like really talking to your limiting beliefs, and checking out what's blocking you, your stories, what you're telling yourself, and how helpful it is to be able to do that with someone else as well.
Like really noticing, checking yourself, noticing, and then checking yourself.
Yeah, so this actually comes about. So we've always said that we share, really vulnerably and like what's going on. So we sat down with Em to record. We were meant to record an hour and a half ago, and we both messaged each other this morning. We're like, can we start later?
I need more time. I'm not ready.
And then we sat down, and I love that we do this. Like when we're not feeling it, we don't. And this was part of our intentions at the start. We don't try and sugarcoat it because we assume that the other one's not going to think the same way. So we just had like a very open chat about how we're not feeling it at the moment with the pod, and we've just had a bit of a break, and then we come back and then I just told Emily, I was like, well, if I'm being really honest, it feels like what's stopping me right now is the lack of recognition. And so then we decided to look at some numbers. And as we were doing,
before you go into that, I just want to expand on that, because
that
wasn't just like that was us talking about how we're feeling and digging a bit deeper.
Yes.
And so what that actually looks like was us being like, I'm feeling tired. I'm feeling a bit burnt out and a bit exhausted. Yes. And then you were like, I think it's the recognition piece. Mm-hmm. But sometimes we don't really realize what it is because it's disguised as other symptoms until you dig deeper under the surface.
Yeah. And I think for certain things, it's easier to, be aware of yourself and to check yourself. But for others, it's a lot harder, depending on. I feel like it's actually, to me, it's harder to see something if I make it mean something bigger about myself. Like if it's more attached to my self-worth or who I see myself as being in the world, then then the blind spots are usually a lot harder to uncover. But this is our fun project. This is our thing that we love to do. So it's got that lightness to it, which I really love, which is why it was, I guess, easier to see and express what I was seeing.
Because there's no expectation with this because we're not selling anything. Whereas if you are selling something, in our personal businesses, sometimes the not being recognized piece there is an expectation attached to it. So then it brings up different feelings, different emotions, different meanings. And, every business owner goes through this. And even if you're working full time, there probably will be times where you're not feeling like you're having the recognition you deserve or you want because it is attached to that expectation. But going back to this being a fun creative project, you're right, it becomes a lot easier to see.
And so we were, because we talk to each other on, I don't know how people who do solo podcasts do it, because you literally feel like you're just talking into thin air. Like there's no it's not like Instagram, like where you would get someone reply to a story or an instant like or something like that. unless you go in and look at the numbers, you don't know. And so yeah, that's what we were feeling. And I love when life and the universe works that way. We literally just logged on to Insta to check some numbers, and we had the loveliest comment. So yeah, it was, that was really affirming to start with. And then we just had a look, and we were like, well, there's a lot more people who listen and who engage with what we share than we thought. And I mean, what we shared, the previous episodes was all about sharing our missions and our visions. And for us, it's so much about sharing with people and helping people. So that's why those numbers mean something. And special shout out to the extra 4 people who follow us on YouTube, because I always say that YouTube's just because my mom follows us on there, but there's another 4 people. So whoever you are, thank you.
Now we know there's more. Yeah, and I think to put it into perspective, it's, you never know who's watching, who's listening, who's resonating, who's getting benefit from what you're putting out. And it's something that lots of business owners talk about, or lots of quote unquote successful people, or people that we look up to, doing similar things or doing something in a particular industry that you're interested in. And you hear those stories, like, keep going, you don't know who's watching, who's listening. And it's so true. And I think this was such a nice reminder. Like, there's over 100 of you subscribed to this podcast, and we didn't realize. And it's not even about the number particularly. No. It's more just that we felt like, for whatever reason, we were exhausted, we were burnt out because there was a lack of recognition. But that's absolutely not true. And so that's why we wanted to just talk to this, the power of just checking with yourself, like, is that actually true? And notice the difference in the energy shift now from when we just started our chat. And then we actually just completely dug into that belief, realized it wasn't true in the slightest, and now we feel energized again.
And that's like, I mean, we obviously are both coaches. I think everybody knows this by now. And so we both like self-coach and coach. Like, we don't really coach each other, which I really appreciate. But sometimes when we see something that the other isn't seeing, we just ask for permission and then bring it up. And I love like how quickly something can shift. And I find that so powerful, and it's just that kind of moment where you just go, in a nice way, like, you're an idiot, like, clearly that's not the case. And I feel like there's something deeper there in the difficulty to keep showing up when you feel like you're not seen. And I don't know what it is yet, or I'm not like able to articulate it just yet. But I feel like there's something there in the ability to keep showing up, not for yourself, but for others, even when you don't know who those others are and how much what you've got to say actually impacts them.
Yeah, because we do actually often get really lovely messages from everyone listening, sharing what they like about what we're saying or what resonated. And that I can't even express how much that means to receive those lovely messages and feedback like that. But yeah, you're right. I think it's like, what we share here particularly, and also as conscious business owners, we are sharing our raw thoughts and feelings. We're vulnerable, we're open, and yeah, there's something about sharing so openly and just not knowing who's listening.
Yeah. And yeah, I don't know what it is. I think we might, come back to that later, but I do feel like there's something there that we're learning, like we're training ourselves in a certain way to keep showing up. And to me, it's also when I don't know exactly yet if what I'm going to share is going to be valuable for others and how it's going to be valuable for others, because we very, very rarely have a topic in mind before we start recording. And when we do, it's usually in the 30 minutes prior when we're catching up, and so to me, like, I almost feel like sometimes I've got a bit of a pressure of, yeah, but are the words that I'm going to say actually going to bring something to someone? Or am I just adding to the noise because I'm not interested in that? But the things that are helpful to people come up naturally through the conversation. So there's just this element of trust that needs to happen. And
yeah, it's the intuition. I think it's the learning to trust our intuition, trust what's coming up, trust that, we would still be doing this podcast if if no one was listening, if one person was listening, because like we said, we're not selling anything, we're just sharing, and this is creative for us. And it's kind of similar to an artist sharing a gallery full of their paintings or drawings, and actually not knowing who's going to go to that gallery or who's going to go to that exhibition. In the same way that actors and actresses put themselves out there, they don't know who's going to watch the movie, they don't know how people are going to receive it. And so I think there's just something about trusting what's coming through and trusting that the right people are gonna hear it or watch it and receive what they need to receive in that moment. Which is actually really special when you think about it like that.
It really is. And
so
go ahead.
No, you go.
I was going to say, like, I find that really encouraging about checking yourself, because it shows like how quickly, like, not in a bypassing way of like, I've checked myself and so now I can move on from it, but noticing that we're not feeling inspired because we don't feel like we're being recognized is not comfortable. Like, no one wants to really admit that about themselves, that you need that much external recognition. But then even just like vocalizing it and saying, well, actually, I think that's what I'm missing from this. I mean, we're lucky that we went on and the numbers show something different, but we're talking about really small numbers in the grand scheme of things. Like, my cousin's got a podcast, she's got 60,000 listens. We're so far from that. So in a sense, like, the numbers are really small, but they're big to us, and we don't see it as just like 100 people. We imagine if we were walking into a room and there was 100 people there who showed up to listen to us chat. And
Yeah.
and I think that's really special. And there's thousands of podcasts that anybody could choose to listen to, and yet they choose to listen to us. So that's really special. Like, really special.
Yeah.
I don't want to just like skim by it, but also like really checking ourselves and saying, yeah, but this is why I'm not feeling inspired. I'm just like kind of wondering what would have been our reaction had the numbers been lower than that. Or yeah, because if we're talking about the power of checking yourself, it's not just because then you're gonna see external proof again that what you're feeling internally isn't real.
Yeah.
So here's me trying to say something of value, but I'm going to stop talking because I don't have anything to continue with. That's something you wanted to share.
I'll add to that, because you just to summarize what you said, it was the external validation. If like you said, we hadn't had the proof of the validation and the recognition, would we have felt the same? And I don't know, I think we would have been feeling something different. But the point is, in checking in, we were able to see what it was that was actually making us feel burnt out. And so now, yes, there's a piece to do around external validation. What does that mean? Because ultimately, I mean, I think it just comes back to like, what are you doing, what you're doing for? What are we doing this podcast for? Why are we sharing in this way? And we're not really doing it for external validation, but we got caught in the trap of thinking that we were. And I mean, there are definitely way bigger podcasts out there, but also, you know, we have only just started, and it's like, I mean, I think it just comes back to like, why are we doing this and what are we doing it for? And if we wanted to grow it, then we could, but that right now, you know, we're happy. So
it's not our focus, and it's not why we made it. And to remind like ourselves and everyone, we made this because we used to catch up over Zoom once a week, and it went for like a good 2 hours. And every time we're like, see, I feel like something in there could have been helpful for someone. So let's just share that. And also, talking is the way we express our zones of genius. Like, that's our way of doing so. And it forces us to try and express something that we've got in our minds. And so this is such a cool way to do it. And we have done it in the easiest way possible for us. I mean, our videos are never like very, very rarely edited. We just show up, record our chat, post it, and then Em makes really pretty reels from them. But we never created this to build a following and all of that. So it's a good reminder, like, what this was created for.
And I think any feeling that's linked to your not self in human design, for me that's bitterness as a projector, for you that's frustration. I mean, there was definitely a little bit of that for me. Was there frustration for you?
Yeah.
So that's like how we know that we're out of alignment. So it was more than, you know, I guess that was like an indication for us that something, there was a disconnect there.
Yeah.
And by exploring that, and going back to like the power of checking in, what we were saying at the beginning about speaking it out, and not only checking in with yourself, but also having someone to talk it out with, is so valuable. And someone who, I think the most important thing is someone who's going to validate how you're feeling, because it's all very well saying, if I had said, you know, I'm just feeling exhausted, and you were like, oh no, you don't need to feel like that, it's fine, you know, like I would have been like even more exhausted. But being able to you know, for you to be like, let's explore that, and like this is how I'm feeling, and having that is so powerful, because you feel validated in how you're feeling, and then you're able to explore that. So yeah, I just wanted to share that in case that's helpful, in case anyone has tried to explore and then felt like they were kind of hitting a wall a little bit with who they're sharing with. Just know that you're completely valid in whatever you're feeling around whatever you're wanting to share or wanting to put out or do.
And I think that's a big thing as well, is choosing who you share with, because a lot of people would say like, well, you know, if you're feeling like you're not listened to enough, then what efforts are you putting into to reach out to more people, and how hard are you trying, and what are you doing about it, and is it that important? You know, a lot of people would have said, well, yeah, like, you know, this is not making any difference in your life, so just stop it or come back to it later. But that would have not given us the opportunity to see that actually the bit that we're needing is external validation. And then who's the one who's needing that external validation, and what does she really need? Because external validation isn't truly deep down what we need. It's something else. So what is that? And then, so that's the power of like really checking yourself, is that you keep like digging in and you get to the root of what it is that you really need. And most of the time, the best person to give that to yourself is you. And that's super empowering and super healing. And so, yeah, be careful, like be very discerning with who you share with. And if you don't have as good a friend as I have with Em, then I'm really, I'm sorry. But doing this, like even journaling or speaking it out loud, can actually be just as helpful, and maybe healthier than sharing it with the quote unquote like wrong people. Because I'm not saying they're bad people, they just don't like empathize or know what to say. Like a lot of people will just try to fix, you know, if they feel discomfort in you, it makes them uncomfortable, so they just try to fix it so you can move on to something else. So, and then like, well, you know, that's the role of a coach that you work with as well. So there is also, I guess that really shows the power of working with a professional as well, on different areas of your life. And on a completely unrelated note, but something I'm really learning at, like learning in the embodying phase kind of way, is that just because you're getting help and working with people doesn't make it less, like, you know, doesn't make you less self-made kind of thing. And yeah, and that relates to that Good Girl episode that we did with Sarah, which I think was episode 25 from memory, or 24. So either way, pop back in, and if you haven't listened to that, because that's what I'm speaking to. So
yeah. I just want to jump back to what you were saying about fixing as well, because I think that really ties in with Good Girl, and also knowing that it's safe for you to be supported, to get help if you desire to, but also noticing that you said something. What did you say? It was like fixing,
like, because the people feel that you're uncomfortable and it's making them feel uncomfortable, so they jump into
yes, like they want to try and fix it, fix you, or fix whatever you're experiencing. But also notice if you are trying to do that for yourself too. And I say that because when we had talked about it, and then we realized that it was linked to the recognition piece, what was going through me was, okay, how do we fix this? Now let's, going back to like our marketing days and our strategy days, where I'm like, need to create a spreadsheet and put together a whole strategy of how we can grow this and get in front of more people. And I had to check myself to be like, no, what's the reason behind why we're doing this and why we're sharing, and just come back to that why.
I didn't realize that went through your brain, because that would have been very quick, because we were chatting. So
oh yeah, it was like a flash, and I didn't even really realize it until I was just hearing you said about the fixing, and I thought, oh, that's what I was trying to do too with myself. Yeah.
I was there with my little like torch of like, let's go in. So what is emotionally, like, what do we, why are we feeling like that need? I mean, we know why we feel that need for external recognition. I think everybody does, in different areas. But how much, like, imagine really not needing that, like how freeing it is to not need that seeing from others. It's not care about it.
Yes.
It's not needed as fuel to keep moving forward. And that's when I was like, there's something in there for us that we're like being invited to train ourselves to keep the stamina going, even if we don't get that little rush of something that we get when you have like an extra little like or a comment or something like that. So because I don't know what it feels like, but I can imagine it's really freeing to not need that external recognition, and to be able to continuously just create for the sake of creating.
And I think, that's why it's so important to enjoy it as well. We enjoy sharing in this way. So it wasn't, when we were saying earlier, like before we recorded this, about feeling tired and exhausted, it wasn't that I didn't enjoy it. And so I didn't realize that until we spoke it out. Whereas the conversation probably would have been very different if you were like, are you enjoying this anymore? And I was like, no. So that's something to think about as well.
And it's like, just because you don't enjoy it doesn't mean you stop. You just find ways to enjoy it more, to make it easier for yourself. And
like we have with this.
We used to edit our videos more and do an intro to each episode, and so you have to, like, even if that's really like quite simple, you still have to put it together and extra steps. And we used to try and plan what we would talk about, and then well, we kept checking ourselves, checking with each other, like, how's this going for you? And well, that's not really flowing, so let's just do it in a different way. And I find that really powerful, but I also feel like I've only just scratched the surface of knowing how powerful it can be and how much can come from that, especially as a manifesting generator. Yeah, I feel like I'm not really tapping into that, like, creative, like, constant creative power. And I feel like for me, it is releasing that weight of the external validation and really tapping into just creating to create. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's literally what we have just done with this whole episode. You know, we were like, what should we don't know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Let's just, and then as we talked and talked, it became clear, and then we just hit record and here we are. So it's like allowing it to just come through us and create for the sake of it, but also with a bit of a purpose in this case.
With a purpose. And this is making me think about, like, because the whole, needing external validation, but then just creating to create, I feel like, and I'm going to speak for both of us, but I think, like, I'm right, so stop me if I'm wrong, but both of us feel like this duty, in what we share and create, that it's got to be helpful for others in some way. And I'm actually wondering if that's not also holding us back, and I am feeling like it's holding me back. So just speaking for myself, yesterday I was journaling and saying that I really want to just write, but not just in my diary, like write and share, not to share a solution, to share a specific message, to make a point, or to try and sell something. Just get into the habit of writing and sharing without, like, back to what early blogs and early Instagram was. And when I think about it, I am so conscious of writing with integrity and not making statements that are going to trigger, hurt, or like people, or communicate like false information, because in the self-development world that is rampant and disgusting. And I'm so conscious about not wanting to be like that and just to be extra noise, that actually that's stopping me from just writing to write and sharing to share. And yeah.
Yeah, I feel a bit of that, but I also enjoy sharing with purpose. Like,
Yeah.
it's like sometimes I feel like that too, and I feel like I just want to write and say what I want to say, just like whatever I'm feeling, but then I do find that having, and now I'm questioning, is this is this conditioned beliefs and patterns and ways of being? But I find having a structure around, whether that's just like a list of like, these are things that are going to be helpful for people, and then I write to those points, it helps the creativity to flow. But then there's a difference between like, I'm going to share these because these are helpful and this is what I've read online, versus I'm going to share these because these are helpful and I've actually lived and breathed and embodied these.
Yeah.
And so, I think for me, there's like a balance of both, but I also think that comes with like the evolution of business. And and then to add to that, actually, as as a business owner, it's, I don't know how to say it. It's like, sometimes, as much as I want to just share whatever, and, you know, there does have to be a point of like, okay, now I am selling something because I need to take care of myself, and I do want to help people, but I also want to get paid as well, because that's,
and also you don't act like you help people with an Instagram post, but you really help people when you're actually doing your job.
So, but you said something that was really, I've really been embodying and loving, which was the queen archetype. You know, the princess is, and this is like not what you were just saying, it's like totally off on a tangent, but it made me just really think about the journey, because I did start off my business in the early stages being like, here's what's going to be helpful, you know, not like putting my soul into it. And now, you know, on this journey, I am sharing more of my soul, but it's the princess archetype is like, I just want to do what I do and not have to like do the things that I don't want to do. Whereas the queen knows that she has to do the things that she doesn't want to do, because that's the queen energy. So yeah, there's definitely like the balance there.
And she also gives herself permission to do it her way.
Yes.
You know, there's that I don't give a fuck energy.
Of
like, I don't care how others have done it before. It's my queendom, I'm doing it my way. But taking like full responsibility for what that means.
Which is gonna look different to everyone, obviously. And so it's like sharing what you want to share about whatever you want to share about whenever you want to share, but also knowing that you're growing your business at the same time. So finding that balance.
I just find it really, like, I just want to point out that we've literally just been checking ourselves for the past like 10-20 minutes of like, but there's this underneath it, and, underneath it, and we're just like deconstructing it, and I mean, that's what we said we would talk about in the episode, so it makes total sense. But so I just want to I wanted to point that out, because it doesn't need to be like deep, uncomfortable stuff that you uncover. It just helps you know what you actually need to address and be present with. And it can just be that simple, like checking yourself. So, and I always find it really freeing. Like there's a weight that you realize you've been carrying that you don't need to. So permission to release.
I love that. And also for there not to be a conclusion, for there not to be a final, you know, oh, this is absolutely why I'm doing, like, no, it's not. It's not about that.
I feel like this is a good place to end, like you saying it, there doesn't need to be a conclusion.
Just leave it here.
And thank you not only to our 4 extra YouTube followers, but to everyone who likes, who follows, who sends us notes saying, you know, that an episode resonated with them. It really means so much.
And for everyone who's feeling similar to how we're feeling, we see you. And we're here with you. So
we'll see you next week.